Okay, everybody, I am here in a sweltering warehouse in the middle of Taiwan to bring you a quick preview of a little something cool. Look at this little gift box here. This is the Maruyama MP9. Let's see if I can open this box. The Maruyama MP9 here, which is perhaps truly, I think, one of actually the most anticipated airsoft releases of the year. It is coming out, I believe, at the end of October. Is it maybe early October? And there's a second batch coming, I think, end of October apparently, because the first batch is already sold out on pre-order on a lot of different prices for this very cool looking airsoft gun. Now, MP9s have been around, in particular gas blowback MP9s have been around for a while in airsoft. In fact, the KWA MP9 was often considered one of the good gas blowback guns, and it's been around for a long time. That information is perhaps a little bit dated. I'll leave people to fight about that in the comments, but we now have a new updated version of MP9 right here, which is looking quite nice. See if I can take it off safety. There you go. So I'm running out of time here. I've actually been messing around with this and assembling and reassembling and checking it out, but I need to shoot a video before they close here. So let's do a quick go through of this from the front to the back, and then I'll do a little bit of disassembly and show you how that's done. It's a little bit hard, by the way, and then we'll do some shooting as well and see the basics of it. Unfortunately, I'm not going to shoot long distance. This is, by the way, just a preview, not a review. Need to put some time into this before I can endorse it and say it's amazing, but I want to give everybody a look at it. And I will say that Maruyama has had a pretty good track record of having really good for the price, well-performing, quite reasonably, cheap guns. So I'm pretty excited about this. Everybody's pretty excited about it. I know a lot of people have already pre-ordered this. It is a good price and includes also out of the box a full suppressor here, which we'll look at in more detail in a second. So, to the basics of the gun. I'm not going to talk too much about the MP9. People know what it is. It is a very compact thing based upon the old Steyr TPP, I believe it was. TMP, rather. The TMP and then the SPP was the pistol version of it. And then B&T, Brugger & Thomas, bought it, and this is, of course, based upon that. This is not a licensed version. There may be some minor differences, and don't expect trademarks out of the box on this. It is, however, of course, clearly, as you can see, based upon that model of the real gun. Outer barrel up here, quote-unquote outer barrel, is steel. Got a little magnet here. Nice steel. So you have a little bit of weight over the front, I will say, because most of this is plastic. And then they use a fair amount of lighter materials there to increase the cycling efficiency. The whole package is very light and handy. Some people may want something a little bit heavier, but this is very light and handy. And then hopefully someone comes out with a holster of it, so you could really have something that could be used both as a main or as a sidearm if you so wish. And then you have, I'll pull this apart here, folding stock, of course. You have a grip up front, feels nice. It is directly molded into the body, so there's no play or anything of that sort. And then you have a little nub here, which is to prevent your hand from going out over in front of the muzzle. You have a rail on the side. You don't have a rail on the left side, by the way. So for people who are looking for something fully ambidextrous, or depending upon, like if you're left-handed, you may have or swapping hands as well, you may have a light or something in the way there, but you do have a rail for that. You, of course, have a rail on the top for all your stuff. You have this little nub of a front sight. You have also a basic rear sight, which also, interestingly enough, and smartly, I think, is made of a softer material you can see here. Probably TPU or something. Which should mean that if this was made from ABS with normal plastic, this would probably very easily break the moment you dropped it. Because it has some give to it, it'll probably not break as easily. And it's a ring sight. You don't have to worry about the precision of it too much anyway. And you also have a hole for your TDC hop adjustment, which we'll look at a little bit more in the future. Let me see if I actually have, yeah, I got a 1.5 thing here. You can go in there and let me find a thing, find it like that. If you'll notice, this wrench is very slightly angled here. So the hole isn't exactly straight down, it's a little bit forward, so you have to know where it is when you look for it. Feels nice to adjust, feels like it's not going to come undone. But of course, we'll see. I haven't had a chance to shoot it at range, so we'll have to see how it performs later on. But having a TDC and easily done hop-up looks nice. You are going to have, it's in the middle here, so if you have a red dot or something on that, you will block your hop adjustment. Even if you block your hop adjustment, you could disassemble it and take it out if you don't want to take out your sight and re-sear it and adjust it by taking out the kind of bolt assembly, which I'll show you in a little bit. So there is the possibility to do that, but you can also just kind of put your red dot in front or in back of that. So just be aware that you do have that limitation of a sort. Going back here, you have your trigger here. Let's see if I can. It is a long, relatively heavy trigger pull. Basically what you expect. Not, you're not going to get your 2011 super nice, super light triggers or something with these sorts of guns. Nothing to worry about. The safety doesn't seem to really, if you don't have the trigger safety, rather, the shoe there, right, you seem to be able to shoot it even without touching that. It feels a little harder to do so. You need to look at the mechanism a little bit more, but just FYI, so that's not a fully functional trigger safety. Perhaps if you put your selector safety on, your selector is, by the way, ambidextrous. You have it here, a shorter one on the right side there, which is to say what left-hand people might use, but the left side, which is using your right thumb, which is what most people are going to use because most of us are right-handed, statistically speaking. It's a little bit longer and extended. Feels nice. Safety, fire, single shot, and then all the way over there you get full auto here. If it's in the middle, by the way, the trigger will not function. You have on this side here, you can see it does say MP9. Look at the angle on that. There you go, MP9 right there. And you have your bolt release here on the left side. No bolt release on the right side because placement-wise, it is where the ejection port is there. The bolt throw is as such. It is a pretty short bolt throw, but it is enough to get you back there. It's enough to strip a BB if it's enough to cycle. This will cycle pretty fast. I did a little bit of full auto shooting. It cycles quite fast in full auto because of this short throw. The spring is not particularly strong feeling, so cycling efficiency should be pretty good. They first showed this off at a sample at MOA 2024. Yeah, last year, 2024. And I did note then that at the time they had a bolt with, you got to this point and then they had a stronger spring or whatever, which you could pull harder and get it back. It seems they've done away with that and just put in a tiny little buffer in the back, which again I'll show you in a second there. The charging handle, basic charging handle, actually no springs or anything. This is just the tension of the plastic, which kind of unlatches it, if you will, there. I guess actually there's no actual unlatching mechanism for this. It's kind of a faux unlatching mechanism perhaps. But yeah, do be aware of this perhaps because this is set up to be small pieces of plastic, so it has some flex. You could potentially break one of these. On the good side though, because this is all plastic, probably very cheap to get replacement parts as well. Then the stock here is a plastic stock, so there's some inherent flex in it, but the latch mechanism doesn't seem to have a lot of play or flex, so it actually feels quite nice. And then it goes here, and there's a little nub here, as you can see, which locks in to this, which is part of the disassembly mechanism, which again you'll see in a second there. So overall, a fairly attractive package. Magazine like so. It uses the same Maruyama magazines that they've used in a number of the SC9 or SCW9 rather versions. These are quite nice. They're quite cheap. They're kind of one piece of extruded aluminum and then with a plastic shell on it. Plastic shell, I think, makes them fairly drop proof, sort of. You have the faux bullets, which I don't like too much, but if you take it apart, you can actually take these out and you can have a more blank thing. It also lets you see the bullets rather, the BBs rather, inside of there. They are overall quite cheap and very functional magazines, which I quite like. So let me do a little bit of Dryfire here. This is very interesting actually, in that the Dryfire and the fire with rounds sounds very different. In fact, hold on. I'll do more shooting later, but let me just give you a quick comparison. If my thing will load BBs without breaking, would be nice. I hate you. Hold on. Yeah, there you go. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, having a rough time, but we will do a few shots. Sorry, I don't have much time to reshoot and don't like to edit these too much. Where can I can avoid it? Oh, that's why, because it starts to break. Gotta do it. Hold on, let me get the other. My loader broke a little bit. Forgive me the awkwardness here. And we will put this guy in much better because it's not broken. Let me do a little bit of shooting just so you can hear what it sounds like, the difference of when it shoots with and without BBs. So this is what BBs are. Now, obviously, different guns sound different, whether they have BBs or not, but this is the first gun which I know of that just sounds completely different depending upon where the BBs are. Maybe something to do with the big kind of, not circular, what's it called, tubular outer barrel, which is sort of acts as probably a, what's the opposite of suppressor? An enloudener, whatever the word is for that. And, similarly, let us put on this. Or look at the suppressor here. So the suppressor, it does also have, you can take off the front cap, probably too dark to see, yeah, way too dark to see, but there is actually a small 14mm threaded portion here. This is very fat. You'll be able to fit just about any, it's not super long, but you'll be able to fit just about any tracer you could think of fatness-wise. Super long one, not sure about. But there is also, I believe, it's very hard to see and it's hard to take this apart, but my understanding is that there's a little nub here that has 14mm, so you can coat and you can screw down there a Bifrost or whatnot. This does not have holes for your flashing things or your Bifrost or whatnot, or not a big hole, but it does have a bunch of small holes there. You see around the edge there. So if you put any sort of flashing blaster, Bifrost, or like the smoky wolf guys or such and so on, you'll start getting stuff coming out of these holes there, which should look fairly cool. So it's a big old nice piece of aluminum, and then the mechanism there is, let's see here, you can see here, the little ratchet mechanism. So you do this, and there's just this little arm here, right, which ratchets onto these serrations. It also has a rail on the bottom of it as well. So you put this on the side, and then put on the side, and then put it so that the rail is down, and then tighten it up. And you'll see this digs into the serrations there and goes in. And once it's all the way in, there is only a tiny bit of play, very small amount. And you have this appearance right here. Let's do it again. Let's do. Get a lot more of that sort of hollow thunk with the suppressor. And let's do a few sounds, and you can compare the sound, because this really does sound very different with and without these. And yes, I know you can't see that. I'll give you a better angle of shooting in a second, or later on. Let me gas this up and let it warm up a little bit. Okay. On to the real fun part, and where I want to spend a little bit of time, because this will actually be somewhat instructional for people as well. Yeah, to take this off, by the way, I think the procedure is just use your nail to press down that ratcheting piece and then unscrew it, and then hopefully I haven't put it on too tight, like an idiot. Nice. Yeah. Take it right off. Boom. All right. Let us disassemble this guy and take a look at the innards, which will be interesting. So to disassemble, you basically take this, there's a little button here, you press that, pop this out. You can pop that out to start with. And then, there's a tab here at the front, or actually, you need to press this in as well, I believe. Yeah, you need to press the disassembly thing as well, And then what actually that will do is it will allow the bolt to go a little bit further forward, which clears it from the rails inside. I'll show you that in a second. This is, if you don't know how to do this is really hard to take apart. Because there's a lot of places where you need to know just how much to press things. And see, I took that off problem earlier on with one of the staff here. We were struggling until we realized and figured out the details of it. So this is the upper receiver here. As you can see, it is nice and cheaply made, economically made, out of all plastic there, with your recoil spring and recoil spring guide rod there. And then the guts of the gun are basically just all this right here. Actually, well, let me also show you the trigger stuff here. So this is the rails, and then the trigger bar. You can probably see moving there. Hopefully it's not too dark. Oh, sorry, it's the other side. Right there. And then the FCG is like this. I think broadly speaking will be not super world shattering. There are steel parts in there. I need to check out exactly what steel parts. Some of this seems like it's probably some zinc castings as well. The housing should be zinc casting. I think the parts may all be steel, but I need to confirm on that because I'm not getting exactly the return that one might mistake. Let's see here. Put the hammer up there. Let's see. The hammer, yeah, the hammer gives a response with the magnet, so I think it is MIM steel. And then it has a roller style. So it looks, with the roller style, it looks sort of broadly similar to a TM Glock style sort of internal. Anyway, this is kind of the main guts of the gun and the bolt. So you see here, the reciprocating part is all this. This is the outer barrel here, and then this is the hop up and kind of inner outer barrel, if you will. The hop up unit in a sense, though this port, like this is the hop up here, of course. What is actually called this portion, we'll get to see what they call it in their documentation stuff. And the reciprocating mass is this guy here, this whole thing, which I presume is based upon kind of the profile of the real one. I'm not that familiar with the real MP9. This piece at the back here, in order to prevent wear, and I think to give a little bit more mass, maybe, who knows, is out of steel, as you can see here. Where this sample's already been fired a bunch, you can see that there's a little bit of wear there, but not much because it is steel. Isha. And you can see here you've got a bit of a reinforcement for the bolt catch. If you will, there you go. The kind of usual thing that's done with some of these, which is a little steel pin inside of the what's it called? Inside of the alloy thing. And then you can see here you've got a faux extractor, which seems to not really move at all. I think it doesn't really move. You have a spring in there, but I think it doesn't move. I think it's simply pinned in place. And you can see here a pin put in at a bit of an angle. I believe that's a pin and not a grub screw. It looks like a pin at a glance. The pin actually, as you can see also, you can see how it goes. You see here kind of peeks through the rail here, but I think that shouldn't be a functional. So this is your reciprocating mass. And then you can see here, you know, the charging handle slots in here. The TDC hop-up is here, so you can put your bolt back, and then you can actually adjust the TDC hop-up from here if so desired. So in case you really want that rail space on the front and you can't reach that, you can always disassemble it and adjust your hop-up by taking out this. More annoying, of course, but in case you really want that rail space. Boom. The nozzle is here. It is a very short nozzle, which is quite interesting. This is presumably proprietary. Actually, come to think of it, this might be an overlap with something. I'll have to see. And I actually don't have an angle on it, but I'm going to be honest with you. I assume that there is no MPAS with this guy out of the box. But being VFC, I presume it will probably work with one of the existing MPASs for this. This should shoot something like 1.2, 1.3 joules, it seems, out of the box on this. And it has the VFC, and I can't see that well, you can see there, the VFC blue bucking. So, can't do too much about the, I haven't shot at range, I can't talk too much about the accuracy and so on. We'll have to wait until I have my hands on the final. Well, this should be the final version. This is a quote-unquote sample, but it should be a production sample. So this should be the final representative of the final version. but I don't want to talk too much about the specifics of the performance until I actually get a chance to take it out to the range and look at it. This is, again, just a preview, not a review, but it is something where I'm giving you perhaps the earliest view, it should be the earliest view anyone gets of this. Which reminds me, by the way, if you want more of these early views, feel free to give me a sub, and I often enough get actually the first look at some of these cool new airsoft stuff, in particular the GBBs coming out of Taiwan. Now, let's go and reassemble this. And first I'm going to reassemble this without the top receiver, show you the difficulty. And this will actually probably be something that a lot of people want to do. I might do a separate video on this as well, just because the assembly is such a pain. Boom. So the basic assembly, and again, this is without the receiver, but the process is you put it in there. And then you put it in here, and you can see here that there's a little piece here that latches. And you need to press this forward in order for that to come down and allow you to go down like such, and allow us to go home. However, it's not quite that simple, because, see this here? Actually, let me pull this out once. So you have two things. One is you are slotting this part onto these posts, if you will, and then pressing this, and then pressing this guy to let it go all the way home, and then it pops back in to lock it in place. You are at the same time have to have a piece, this piece here, maybe a little bit dark, but this takedown, takedown lever like you have a Glock or whatever, takedown thing like you have a Glock, actuates this guy here. And it's a little bit funky because this can move around a lot, so you got to be careful this is going straight anyway. And there's a post here that sticks up. And that post there goes into this hole, but it's not just this hole, it has to be aligned, and we'll see with this. Maybe a bit dark, but you can probably see. This is unaligned, and you can see the half moon shape there, and this is aligned. So you need to make sure that this is in the right place. So you need to put something down here. You also have to have a thing put in there, which has to be in the right place, because you can go too far forward or back. The other problem is that the construction of this post here, which actuates here, will actually press on your bolt here, and it can press it backwards. So you have to have it in place for this to be able to go fully forwards. And if it's not fully forwards, what happens here is you see you have a rail here on the back of the bolt, and that interfaces with this rail. And this has to be fully forward, otherwise the end of this rail will be getting stuck on the end of this rail, and you can't pull it out. And with the top receiver on, none of that's visible, so you just have to basically know, and you have to know the procedure. The other problem with that is, so for one, you have to have this guy here, this post here, fully home, and that has to be fully up for everything to work properly. The other thing is that this piece here, which you press, when we were first assembling, we were like, oh, we got to press this, and we thought we weren't pressing it far enough, and maybe it wasn't quite fully aligned. What can actually happen is you have extra room here, and you see here, watch this, you can press it too far, like that, and what happened there? I pressed it too far, and it pushed the bolt backwards. So if you're trying to assemble this, or disassemble rather, and you're pressing with all your might on this and pressing all the way, you'll actually be pushing this too far, pressing the bolt back, and you're catching the rail on the rear rail there. So you have to know how far, you have to kind of feel how far to press this. You have to feel how to align this so that this goes in, and with the upper receiver on, it's all not visible to you. So let me show you the full kind of correct process for doing this. Boom, first on this, and then I'll do the full thing. So here we got this, and then we're going to press this down in here just enough so it goes all the way home. And as long as you do that right, it'll go and drop in there. Typically, overpressing this is not a problem with the assembly, because once you have it in, it'll pop in, and it shouldn't be so much of a problem. On the disassembly is where you can, watch this, so you can go, I can press this. Okay, I want to press this, I want to disassemble this. So I'm pressing this with all my might and pressing too far, trying to pull up, and then what's happening is that this bolt has actually been pushed back here, and you're going to see here that this rail will not allow you to pull it up because the bolt's taking you back too far. So we need this to be sitting forward, and then we need to have this, well, let me do that again. We need to have this, and you can move this by taking and pressing your finger inside and pressing this kind of inner outer barrel, if you will, inside, and then you press that back and hit the right place, and that should pop up. But if this is a little bit out of alignment, or as I showed you, it's kind of loose, right? And then you can't see it, and then you can't see it on your receiver, this can be frustrating. And then if you press it too far, because you can, I believe, press it too far here. Yeah, you can press it too far in, and then you're misaligned. And you have to push it back in place, like so. And so on. So there's a couple places where you need to know exactly where it's kind of in the middle. It's not pressing fully forward or back. Yeah. Now let's do it properly with the upper receiver on there. Let me show you. Hold on, yeah. Press it, push it up, boom, like so. Even with the upper receiver off, it's a little bit funky. And now we press this in. You, of course, align this spring into your guide there. Boom, and then push this in. And then this little nub, this little post here, needs to go into a post into here. This part's relatively easy. Boom, set up like so with your upper receiver. Then you need to press it in from the front. If it's at an angle, this might not work, so you need to kind of flex this to make sure it comes in like that. And then press this the rest of the way, and then press your front part just enough, but not too much. You need to make sure your bolt is forward too. Press this forward just enough, that's kind of halfway. Then press the back here and make sure it all goes home. And this looks about right, but you'll notice that this is still down, so you need to either press this with your fingers, which, see, that works. But yeah, it looks like it went too far, so I'm press this as far as I can. It's not working right, at which point I need to go in, back the bolt here, and then to reset it, and then I'm going to pull this up at the same time, trying to find the right spot. I found the right spot. I was pulling it up. The spring is a little bit weak on this, so you can't rely upon it to pop up on its own all the time, especially when you have the upper receiver on. You need to press this in a bit. So if that sounds complicated and finicky, it's because it is. Maybe one of the biggest downsides of this is that for a new player, you really need to understand how to take this apart. So I may well do, wanted to get this in hand, I may well do a separate video just on this. So that has been the basics of the gun, the overlook of it, what it looks like, what it feels like. Finally, let's do a little bit of shooting, not too much, as I'm literally running out of time here. And this is set for 0.3 gram BBs. And let me throw in some BBs here and hold my gas. My mag has enough gas here. Boom, boom, boom. Throw it in. These mags, as mentioned before, I quite like them. You'll be able to see the BBs kind of calling here, if it loads properly. There you go. You see here, you can see the BBs through the kind of half-transparent plastic there. It's pretty nice. The only downside of the plastic here is that it does mean that you're getting less heat transfer. So as the magazine cools down, it won't heat up quite as fast as it might otherwise. I'm going to do this without the suppressor, I guess, once. Like so. And let's see here. I'm actually... Alright. Now these are 0.3s. We'll see if you have the enough resolution to see the stuff there. Take a look at it by the by. Not bad. Let's do some single fire. A couple going up and down there, but around 91 for most of it. With 0.3s, should be like 1.2 joules or so, I believe. And then a little bit of full auto here. So obviously siphoning a bit there, probably overfilled the magazine a little bit, though also with full auto that can happen, but pretty nice. Now, hold on. I have to be careful because there's some stuff here in the warehouse I'm not supposed to show you. There you go. So, quick look. Oh yeah, by the way, drops free and ambidextrous. Somebody asked for this, if it's ambidextrous or not. And of course it's ambidextrous. It's a modern gun. So that's been a quick, I say quick, but it's been about 30 minutes, look at all the factors of the MP9. This is, again, a quick preview. This is not a review. Thank you very much to the distributor here in Taiwan for letting me take an early look at this probably the first look out there. Looking pretty good. I'm pretty excited about this. A lot of people are. The first batch is sold out on pre-order in some places. If you want these, you may want to run for it. Fortunately, in the US, you're going to get hit with tariffs right now, I think. But we'll see how it is for the rest of the world. I don't know who else has this. Previous people who have previous Maruyama stuff will probably have this. And in fact, some places, I think, in the US, for example, are also taking Maruyama stuff right now as well. So this may be coming out over there too. This has been a preview of the Maruyama MP9 gas blowback submachine gun, I suppose. Thank you very much for your attention. Let me know if you have any other questions in the comments, and I may do a follow-up if need be. Otherwise, I will probably do a video about the disassembly of this when I get my full production versions in hand. Thank you very much.